For this video, I decided to 3D model Fredbear from the Five Nights at Freddy's series. He isn't really in any of the games, maybe a little bit in the fourth one, but not really part of the main series, I guess. He's really involved in the lore, but not really involved in the actual game. But anyways, I decided to 3D model Fredbear because the YouTube shorts I posted seemed to do a lot better than my other videos, and I was trying something out to see if this one would catch more of people's attention than the other ones I did. If so, I'm probably going to follow it up with a Spring Bonnie model, and maybe the original game as like Spring Locks or something. But basically, I don't actually have anything to say, but I was making everything up besides the head along the way. The head was the only part I used as like reference, and then everything else was made up from either memory of the past games, what they used for endo parts, or just freestyling it to the end. For the jaw, I started out wanting the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 jaw, but then it kind of evolved into the Five Nights at Freddy's 2 jaw. But when I looked at it, it kind of looked like a duck, and I didn't want that, so I went back with the original idea, Five Nights at Freddy's 1 jaw, the teeth, as no one would cherish that model with the endo. And I decided that the hat should go up and down automatically. Well, up and down with help. And I was originally not going to do the weird pistony mouth thing and just have it on a hinge, but I decided, since that was the main feature of the actual animatronic, like Fredbear of his original design, his main gimmick was that he just had this giant jaw that went up and down through pistons and not a hinge jaw. So I ended up going that route, and then I started putting some ports onto him just so I can add wires later. And for the neck, it was basically just going to be a rod, but then I added the weird neck rib things. I don't know why, but I just kind of decided that would be a good idea. And then I started attaching the wires onto the model. Originally the wires were going to be connected to the eyeball and the eyelid until I decided it looked weird that way, and then I just ended up attaching them to either each other on the ports on the front of the head that were mostly empty, and just on the rod there. And then for the ears, unlike the other 3D models I made that were more of the realistic Chuck E. Cheese style and approach and Showbiz Pizza, I decided I wanted to do springs for the ears, but as well as doing a speaker inside the mouth, just because it just makes a little bit of sense. And the original models did actually have speakers in their mouths, especially more noticeable in the second game. And then instead of continuing on the model, I decided that I wanted to put the textures in viewport display, so I had a better idea what the colors were, and so I didn't have to go back and recolor everything after I made it. So I decided I should color it before I make everything else, because instead of being a less detailed model like the other endos on the other 3D models of Five Nights at Freddy's I've made, I decided that I wanted this endoskeleton really good. So I'm putting a lot of effort into the neck, especially just so it's on the same piston hinge, because I really liked the thing I did for the last video where I made it on a type of hinge, I guess. Well, not hinge at all, not at all. It's just a bunch of pistons connected to a sphere that are moving it around and stuff. And for the arms, instead of going with the classic Five Nights at Freddy's disconnected arms, I still made them disconnected from the torso, but the arms itself are still intact instead of being segments. Because I still wanted that, like, Showbiz Pizza style animatronic, I guess. And after the newest game, The Secret of the Mimic, I feel like if we're relating Fazbear Inc. to Edwin's like factory, I feel like more puppet style would be more related to it. I am aware that Edwin did not design them, but I feel like if he's holding them, or if they had a partnership that made something, I feel like it would go more puppet-like, or more like costume-like. And since it is doubling as like a mascot costume, because the idea of the Springlocks is that it stands alone as an animatronic, but also can be used as a suit to wear to interact with people and stuff. So I did want to contribute more to the suit part because it looked a lot more like just a Five Nights at Freddy's animatronic than a actual mascot costume. So I decided that I actually wanted it to look like an actual mascot costume. Well, a little bit like one. Because there aren't really any costumes that double as animatronics in real life at all. Torso, I searched up a lot of reference images of the first game for the Endo, because I feel like since I am aware that the Springlocks are more based around the second game endoskeleton, but because I was already going with the Five Nights at Freddy's 1 type of design, I feel like I should just keep that up and search up some reference images. And I made the little rods stick through his back and act as though they were the Springlocks that could be unwinded, and the way to unwind them was through that. And for the legs, I decided to go with a more second game style. It still had the same rod from the first game, like it's still almost the same rod, but I decided that it would be a good idea to make it more rings, so the person could actually go in it. And for the Springlocks, I kind of just made some spikes because I didn't feel like making super hyper detailed things that would actually work, because not all of Scott Cawthon's original models necessarily made sense in the real world, but could work with some alterations. It's been done before by multiple YouTubers, like the Wicked Makers is a good example, I think. And for the lower leg, I made the leg portion look a lot more like Springtrap's lower leg, because I thought that would make sense since they're both Springlock suits. And then I added some ports onto the hip so I can attach wires to it. And that's pretty much what I have to say for modeling the legs. For the arms, it's essentially going to be the same style, but here I'm just kind of placing out where the arm length is going to be, so I can have a better time modeling and not struggle as much with the placement of them. And essentially, they're all basically the same part, but still, it's necessary for them to look good if I wanted to be, a good looking model or a highly detailed endo. It still needs to have a lot of detail. And for the microphone, I'm doing the same thing I did with the speaker, adding a wireframe modifier to a second sphere to make it look more like a microphone. And then I'm adding a bunch of wires to the jaw. So in the second game we have Live and Chica and how her jaw goes up and down and there's multiple wires holding it together. And for the rig, I'm putting basically just the basic rig for it. Nothing too much because they are actually rather stiff in the bones, so I didn't want to make something too fluid for them to move and stuff. So most of parents for the bones, I guess, no, for the mesh to be parented to the bone is just going to be a bone parent, just as if they were part of the bone, moving around, not deforming. And for the wires, I'm doing the same thing I did for the last video and adding hooks onto the bone, which took a really, really long time, which you can't really see here, but that really took an hour and a half for getting all of the wires hooked up to the bone. I sped up the video a lot, so you can't really tell how much time I put into this model, but this entire model took 9 hours to make in total. But I'm really proud of it in the end. And I did add the shoulders and a little bone to control the direction of the shoulders, I guess I'll call it. And now I'm basically just trying to get the right leg to work because I didn't know why it wasn't working, and I just tried fixing it with the weight paints, but I didn't know really what the left leg weight paints were, so I just copied it over and rotated it. And for the ears, I searched up a tutorial to get the ears to wiggle when the head moves because they're on springs, so I thought it would be a good idea to do that. And for the materials, essentially what I'm doing basically what I do all the time for texturing all my models, and I wanted to put hair, so I searched up another tutorial, but I just didn't understand and it didn't explain very well how to, so I scrapped the idea and just started posing it and getting it ready for a rendering. So this is what this portion is. I thought instead of having the pizzeria background and the performing, that was one of my thoughts to do that, but instead I thought it would be a better idea to make them inside of a facility, I guess, or maybe he's inside of Edwin's factory, I don't know, but definitely an area to hold all the parts of him and just to hold him all of the unused assets that they don't use anymore. Pretty much it. And here's the actual render. I didn't really like how it turned out that much because it looked really weird. And so I went back to fix a few things about the model. I forgot to record it, so this is just me presenting what I changed. Pretty much I expanded the size of the noise check texture so you can better see the I guess fur detail, I'd call it. I did also go back to the end to extend the end of the neck a little bit, but you can't really see that. And I did fix the wiggle ears so they wiggle, I guess, less because they had too high an influence from the other bones. But that's essentially it for all the changes I did, and this is the render with the changes. Not much different, but you can definitely tell that there's somewhat of a texture on the yellow parts. I think most of the texture didn't turn out because of the background, but this is the render and that's the end of the video.